Welcome to Microsoft Excel 2016 Core. We're going to go ahead and get started with the first module, which is called Using the Ribbon. And so let's go ahead and talk about the ribbon in Microsoft Excel. The first task is to change the screen view. We're going to start by clicking the File tab to open the Office Backstage view. This is an important vocabulary word that you need to remember. Office Backstage View is this back area where you can do things such as save, print, share your Excel files. Moving on to step 2, it says we're going to click New, and we're going to select Blank Workbook. Now it wants us to click the File tab, and it wants us to just see that if we end up deciding that we don't want to use any of these features, that we can click the back button to return to a workbook that we might be working on. This is another vocabulary word, workbook. A workbook refers to a document that you work on in Excel. You'll notice that this blank workbook is called Book 1 by default. All right. Moving on to step 5, it wants us to click the View tab to activate it. So you'll notice when I click the View tab, it is active, and this is indicated by the different color that you see here. It's gray. This is the same as in Microsoft Word and PowerPoint. That's all you have to do for step 5. Moving on to step 6, it says point to page layout in the workbook views group, and notice how the color of the button changes. And so if we click on the page layout and workbook views right here, there's this page layout button. You'll notice that now we see this document differently. This is how this document would look like if it was printed. All right, on the View tab in the Workbook Views group, we're going to go back to Normal View, which is how we edit our workbooks in Excel. We're going to click Mark as Answered, and moving on to Task 2. It wants us to move the cursor to the Zoom slider, which is right here at the bottom right, to it says here approximately 200%. Now, I recommend you try to get 200 exactly, even though it does say approximately. You can just use this minus button to get it exactly. I did this module previously and got this one counted wrong, and the only thing I can think that I did differently the first time I got this wrong was I just did 196%. Which is technically right, because this says approximately 200, but it counted it wrong. So my recommendation, folks, is that you get this set to exactly 200. All right, it says here at the far right of the ribbon, it wants us to click this button that is how we can change the way the ribbon looks, and it wants us to change it to where the ribbon is collapsed. This is where you no longer see your tabs up here, but now we get more rows at the bottom, and that's what it says right here. All right, now moving on to step 3, it wants us to click the Home tab, and you'll notice that when I click that, we get our options back, and then it wants us to click the Formulas tab. Once again, we get the functions for formulas. Now it wants us to click a blank area of the Excel title bar. That's up here. The title of a document, whether that be Word, PowerPoint, Excel, is always at the top in the middle. It wants us to just click in this blank area, and you'll notice when I click on that, the formulas options went away. All right. Moving on to the next directive, step 5 says to click and drag the slider so that the percentage changes to 50%. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And once again, even though this, some of these say approximately, I would get it exactly to 50%. And so there we go. And then it says, now it wants us to drag the slider to return the zoom to 100%. And so if you're wondering why you're doing this, this is just to show you how far you can zoom out and how much you can zoom in using the zoom options. And now we're going to click the ribbon display options, and we're going to set it back to my favorite, which is the default, which is to always show the tabs and commands. Now step 7 says move the cursor to the top of the screen and click some of the tabs to see how the commands are categorized. And so we've already gone over file. We're going to click home, insert. I would just click through all of these and preview the different options that there are. Make sure you click mark as answered, and we're going to move on to the third task, which is using keyboard shortcuts. It says here, first step, press Alt to display the keyboard shortcuts on the tab. Make sure that when you click Alt that you have Excel selected, that it is white up here. And I'm going to click the Alt key, and you'll notice when I do that, it shows the shortcuts that you can use to switch and move around in your document. So I'm going to press P to go to the page layout tab. That's what step 2 asks us to do. And when I do that, the shortcuts that are available change up here. And if we move on to step 3, it wants us to press M to display the margin option. So I'm just going to press the M key, and you'll notice that this prevents me from having to move my mouse around, and I can literally move around faster by knowing all of the keyboard shortcuts. Moving on to step 4, it wants us to press escape to go ahead and cancel that margin options that we're displaying. And it says notice that the keys are still displayed on the tab, so you can continue to use the keyboard to choose a different command. Alright, last step is to press the escape key twice more until the shortcut keystrokes no longer appear. So if you have your keyboard shortcut still active, you can push the escape key and it takes them away. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you've clicked mark as answered, and that concludes our first module. I'm going to go ahead and submit this, and you will notice that I was able to get a 100% on this. And so thank you so much for watching this, and we'll see you in the next module.